I was just thinking the place we ended last week, in case you were with me then, was Tara is the general mantra for Tara, can generally be said to be Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha. But I would argue that the general mantra for Tara is I love you all. I love all of you. So when we say those mantras, they're very similar. I love all of you, may or may not have led somebody to complete enlightenment, but we can count on Om Tare Tu Tare Turi Soha. So, have you seen White Tara before? Have you seen a Tanka, for example? Tanka is the name of these, traditionally in Tibet, pictures of meditational deities that were painted in intricate detail on the basis of texts that set the stage with an elaborate visualization, or maybe unelaborate, for you. And so it was natural that illustrations would be done. They're not always necessary, but of course a beautiful artistic tradition came along. And if you go to Dharamsala in India, where the Dalai Lama ended up, or at around the Bodha Stupa in Nepal, everybody wants to paint, and everybody wants to buy tankas, these rolled scroll paintings, which were traditionally done on fabric. So because a lot of Tibetan life was nomadic. So SR is coming in here and saying, I've seen different colors, Tara, but I don't know much about her. Well, okay. We'll talk about the white aspect today and more about General Tara. General Tara. So Tara is I said last week that we might, just as background SR, that from our point of view, a lot of us are looking for female representations of enlightenment, female goddesses, or female powerful figures. So in Buddhism, at least in our form of Buddhism, in this Nyingma tradition I'm from, but in Tibetan Buddhism in general, Tara isn't a goddess, really. They may use the word goddess to refer to her, but what it really means is the enlightened nature of your own mind, and this quality, which you can see. I'm going to bring up a picture of one of these tankas or scroll paintings done on fabric traditionally. This one may or may not have been. Let's see now. It's not coming in yet. Oh, hey. It's not coming in to my... It's usually I just drag things in and there they are. Let me try in a few minutes. I'm going to... I think it's a technical issue. I'm going to... Okay, I'm having technical difficulties. It's not downloading. Usually I drag her in. I wonder what's going on with that. Well, okay, technical difficulty. That's awful, because what I was going to say was everybody wants to paint Tara, white Tara, because one of her very most amazing qualities is her amazing beauty, and very peaceful, very feminine. I'm going to email her to myself. All my pictures for today's presentations are now not showing up in my app, so that's okay. She'll come up in a little bit. So let me say then that it's not like an externally existing, like there's a goddess somewhere who's thinking, I like SR because she makes offerings to me. I like yummy ice cream and she gives me yummy ice cream, It's not like that. It's what's different than our culture, where somebody might think that God or Jesus is in heaven, or and thinking, judging, or has their own personality and social life and favorite foods and so forth. It's not like that. It's this is the qualities we blossom from our heart. And white Tara comes out of a tradition of Tara kinds of these feminine Buddhas that were passed down from us to us from the Indian tantric tradition. So this is something definitely came from India. If you go to one of the Buddhist ruins, holy places, Buddhism is not big in India these days, or to the national museums in India, you'll find beautiful sculptures of Tara from the 6th, 7th, on through the 10th century AD. And then it took Tibet by storm around the 10th century. And there's many, for people who hold one of the spoken lineages for these texts, it's actually a body of texts and teachings. It's been passed from teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student. That's one way of practices coming forward. So they might have, I don't know if they have a Sanskrit original for a white Tara practice, they may. But it came through and it was translated and passed down from teacher to teacher. And there's 6 famous lineages for white Tara practice and how it came to Tibet. But in the Tibetan Buddhist lineage that I hang out with, that I belong to, I could say, if I was feeling a sense of inclusion. They come through great visionaries who have visions of Tara, or maybe that would be called like a pure vision teaching. And Tara, this vision, gives them a text. And this is called the treasure tradition or Terma tradition. Or it could be the great master of masters, Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, left the teaching buried in the earth, or sometimes they'll express it like it's buried, it's hidden in the wisdom mind of one of Guru Rinpoche's 25 disciples back in the 8th century. And then the incarnation of that disciple, that great awakened disciple, suddenly can remember it. And it can arise like a scrolling, what do you know, the opening of Star Wars? One Tirtan I've heard about, maybe more than one, saw it like that, where the text, they could just access, go to page 1, go to page 8, and totally see it in front of them, like that. Other times, a little symbolic script will be found, and then when this destined person finds that in physical form, or a statue of Tara, for example, hidden in a physical place in Tibet, or Bhutan, the Himalayan region generally. And then from that scrap, something awakens in the mind and a whole practice tradition of Tara emerges. So another way when things come to us in the Nyingma lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, these practices tend to come to us that way. I hope that's not too technical. Since I lost my pictures, I'm having to go on words. So I'm going to go to my Gmail and try to, maybe if I download it and then bring it in, I can bring you a picture of Tara. And so that's the way the most famous tradition of the Nyingma, and I'd say Kagyu maybe tradition. No, Nyingma tradition is this text called Chime Pakme Nying Tig from a 19th century master called Jamyang Khyentse Wangmo. Okay. Working with Tara, problem solving. So, and here we go. Let's see if this works. Come on, baby. Yes. Okay, for some reason it wasn't working from Dropbox for me, so I'm going to stand behind Tara. Or maybe I'll move over this way a little bit. So there's white Tara. Phew! I was worried. And I won't be able to start. I had all these pictures of Tara's statues from India, but I guess you can go to the San Francisco Asian Art Museum. or look online and Google Tara, and you'll see all those pictures too about ancient Taras. But this is a typical and beautiful representation of white Tara. And what do you see about her that's the same and different from every other Tibetan Buddhist peaceful deity you see? So Tara is I'm going to go here according to the commentary by Khenpo Kartar Rinpoche. I hope my camera is focusing on this. It's kind of a problem because I think you got that wish-fulfilling wheel. So we'll talk about the wish-fulfilling wheel. Tara is, in one sense, could be the mother of all the Buddhas, like the embodiment of Prajnaparamita. And what does it mean to be the mother of all Buddhas? The feminine principle, all these Dakinis, the female Buddhas, represent the emptiness principle. And the wisdom, this is of the vague English word wisdom, points to several words in Sanskrit and Tibetan that mean in general that the practice of Dakinis, of feminine wisdom, is how you have a direct experience of emptiness, shunyata, the way things really are, beyond all the fog of all your concepts, beyond your human senses. You can touch into your own Buddha, deep Buddha knowingness, your Buddha nature in your heart. And it's like seeing with new eyes. Suddenly you can wake up to a free experience that cuts through all of your delusions about reality. And this is what the feminine principle primarily represents. And in the Tantric tradition, the feminine principle, this means the practice of Vajrayana Buddhism. This principle of Dakini also touches based on activity. It's interesting those two things go together, you know. Ever since ancient Buddhism, the feminine represented the realization of emptiness, which is, in its utmost sense, Buddhahood itself, complete awakening. And then in the Tantra tradition, also in the Nyingma tradition in particular, the Dakini practices are the root of activities, so enlightened activities to benefit living beings. So here we have this a prime example of White Tara, who by her female Buddhahood represents the realization of emptiness, nature. And then also, she's primarily thought of, if you ask somebody what's White Tara about, they'd say, oh, longevity deity. So her activity is to pacify obstacles to your long life. And so people do Tara practice to extend, to have a long life. And I held up a book by Khenpo Kartar Rinpoche. I want to hold it up again. If you're a Vajrayana practitioner, probably not so interesting if you're not. It's a wonderful book about White Tara. And it's just beautifully laid out and it's beautifully translated. And Khenpo Kartar Rinpoche lived in the United States in Woodstock, New York. And I just want to mention he lived to be 95 years old. He only passed away a couple of years ago. And his activity to benefit sentient beings was vast. Not only a scholar, but a really excellent practitioner. Spent many years in retreat. And this is the case for many of the great people who attained awakening through the practice of White Tara. They live long lives, and often they were scholars, the ones from India, and sometimes the ones from the great male practitioners anyway in Tibet were great monks and scholars. And everything, they for some of them, white Tara was the practice that did everything from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, from their beginning practice, and on a superficial but really super helpful level of the practice, the mantra, and the visualization extends your life. And really, they do live long lives generally, unless there's other obstacles, such as a car accident or, you know, it gives you extra juice, so extends your life force longer, barring unforeseen circumstances, and assuming you have a good diet and you exercise and so forth. Anyway, so many people do it when they run up against a life-threatening illness. They'll do some white Tara practice. I think I'm skipping around. I do. So we were looking at the image here of white Tara, and let's go back to that. So what is unusual with her, and I'm going to try to make her bigger and blot myself out here, bring her down a little bit. Well, she has two eyes where you'd think she would have two eyes, right? But what's that in the middle of her forehead? Well, you may not be able to tell, but it's another eye. And then if you look at her palms, more eyes. And then if you look at the soles of her feet, more eyes. And Khenpo Kartar said that there's no example in the literature about why she has these eyes, but there's oral traditions, and one of them is that each of the eyes are looking in a different direction. They're looking at different realms of sentient beings. So they are, she's gazing with compassion against all kinds of sentient beings, you know. And in Tibetan traditional society, and I think they're right, there are more than obvious like animals and humans. There's a lot of invisible beings. Yeah, we certainly acknowledge in our society we have many ghost stories, right? So there are ghosts, and most of the things we would call demons belong in that category. And some of the things we call gods belong in that category, weirdly enough. But in our society, so that's like three, but there's three more. There are gods that are like live in really, really nice lives and formless realms, and very, very long-lived, blissful lives. And then there's gods that are competitive with each other, called demigods. And okay, gods, demigods, humans, ghosts, gods, demigods, humans, animals, ghosts, and hell beings. That's a different category. Different than our society, where I think demons and hell kind of go together. They're different. So each of her, you see, like one eye's looking out on her right hand. You know, the ones on her feet are looking up. The ones on her eyes are looking out. So there's 6 realms and 7 eyes, and the seventh, this eye here is looking at the like Buddhist practitioners who've attained like total peace for themselves, but they haven't attained complete Buddhahood, complete awakening. And so she's gazing with compassion on them. So then you cover everybody. And so she's white, like a white crystal, and translucent, like she's made of light, right? And usually, you know, the rainbow you see around her is representing the rainbow light rays are pouring out from her. She's totally peaceful and more beautiful than you can imagine, more beautiful than you can put in words. And this is an Utpala flower, so rare. It's usually white, but here it's represented a little bit differently. And there's actually 3 of them there. There's a little bud of an Utpala flower. There's a kind of one that's kind of going to seed a little bit, and one that's in full blossom. That's the Utpala is representation of Tara in general, all the Taras. But here it's like her activity never ceases in the past, present, or future. 3 times. So there's 3 lotus buds. I'm just doing a few, you know, minor details, but if you really wanted to get into Tara, you receive empowerment from a qualified Vajrayana master who's accomplished the practice. And then you're introduced to all the great array of details, probably, hopefully, and exactly how to do the practice correctly. And given an empowerment is like an enthronement, just to put it, of a king. So you're given all the accoutrements, the implements to do your job as a practitioner of Tara. So what else can we say about this? I think that's a good overview of Tara, white Tara in her aspect here. I hate to take her down because, you know, she's just inconceivably beautiful, inconceivably peaceful. Here the color white is representing pacification. There's 4 different enlightened activities, and they have 4 different colors that represent them. There's lots of tables of correspondence in Tantric Buddhism, much like others, I think probably other systems of spiritual wisdom around the world. They may or may not overlap. But here, once you've really accomplished Tara, say you've done like 10 million mantras, Tara mantras, that's a lot to start, you know. You'd start with 1 million, then if you really wanted to become a Tara and enact all her activities, and really become a Tara master, you would do at least 10 million Tara mantras. That's a lot. So you're absorbed, you're swimming in the sound of Tara. And the mantra is the general mantra of Tara would work, Om Tari Tu Tari Turi Soha. It's often the main white Tara mantra as well. And there's a long life mantra that goes along with it, and that you can get if you go and receive the practice formally from a master. So this Vajrayana is about, includes a relationship between a teacher and a disciple. Even if you only see that teacher once, and you go to an empowerment, but you really trust them, you really respect them, you see them really purely, and you receive empowerment, the ceremony transmission, which is a reading of the text to you, and then all the instructions about how to do the practice. That is a teacher-disciple relationship, even if they live in Timbuktu or Mongolia or Bhutan or wherever, and you never see them again. That is one of your teachers, and you always think of them respectfully, speak of them respectfully, so forth. So Vajrayana is not like something you watch a YouTube video and then you go off and do it. You can always call on Mother Tara. You can cry out to Mother Tara's, Arya Tara's help at any time. Arya Tara. Arya means Bodhisattva. Arya Tara. When you're in trouble, like I told a story last week, you can go back and look from Lama Wangdo about when he did that in an emergency, and it seemed to work. So, do you have any questions about Tara? There's really real live people here, so I want to give you an opportunity if you do, or don't feel shy if you're new to Buddhism or Tantric Buddhism. I'm absolutely happy to answer your questions. So Arya Tara lives in your heart, you know, and she loves all sentient beings equally. So Tara, all the Taras are teaching us how to be loving and compassionate, to completely blossom that so you don't parse out your love and compassion just for the people you like, and hatred for the people you don't like. So that whole holisticness is very, very powerful. Love, compassion. And then the gradually over time, or suddenly, waking up to some kind of, not that things go away, the world doesn't go away. The trees are still tree-ish. Everything, it's not trying to go on a drug trip and finally get, after wishing it for so long, be ejected to Tara's Pure Land, Uloka, Lotus Array, and where everything is blissful all the time. That's a kind of a low level thought, and it's not going to happen anyway. You might have that experience for a while after passing if you were a great Tara practitioner, where you go to Tara's Pure Land and you have the experience, perceived experience of being with Tara, who you've been forging a relationship with in your heart for decades. And now you naturally go to meet Tara and you see her there right after passing. And then you'd be able to do like a really good meditation retreat, all circumstances, awesome, and bring forth qualities of practice that you weren't able to do in this human form. But in terms of our regular lives, there's nothing, Tara is not an escapist, really. It's about being more here, in a way, more present, the way things actually are. Not seeing yourself anymore. If you practice Tara as yourself, then after a while you see, I'm like made of light. I'm empty and yet I appear. And the whole storyline you have about your life, about I am Yudron Wangmo and I was born in Arlington, Virginia, and I really like ice cream and I don't like vegetables very much. Whatever baloney, you tell yourself, I like to go to movies, but I don't like to go to baseball games. No longer, all you exist for at the state of awakening, so I hear, is to benefit sentient beings and bring them to that same state of awakening. And you're kind of going, darn, I completely attained Buddhahood as Tara before everybody else. That's terrible. I was making the intention that I would, that they'd all go before me, or at least we'd all go together, but darn it, here I am, enlightened. Oh well, now I'm going to in body, transmit, launch, save lives. A practitioner of Tara might be someone who would release sentient beings who are doomed to die. Like so recently there was about to be, a local Buddhist organization is saving some goats from death. And they were able to have the opportunity. They buy the goats and then they must be taking care of them somehow. It's not like in Tibet where you can just buy, free animals and they go on, they live healthy lives. You have to take care of them. But typically they're fish, or we do insects, which is, that are native, crickets, or worms that are native, earthworms that were going to be used as bait. They might buy millions of those and put them in everybody's garden where they'll be safe on a nice rainy day. And that's the kind of activity that someone embodying Tara would do, for example. Okay, I think I got my point across. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box there so far. Thank you for coming, and I hope that was clear. I know I got a little discombobulated by the graphic art problem, but oh well, that's the way things go in real life. I'll see you next week, I hope. Bye now. Please like and subscribe.